much wanted to be with you here today, but unfortunately her schedule, particularly at this time in New York, during the Commission on the Status of Women, prevented her from being with you today in person. But it is my distinct honor indeed to represent Dr. Bahous on behalf of UN Women at this 5th edition of the Oscars for Women Pioneers. Allow me to acknowledge His Excellency Dr. Fayçal Al-Fayez, President of the Jordan Senate, all the excellencies from Jordan and the different countries across the Arab region and beyond, and distinguished guests and friends. Let me also thank the organizers, the Pioneers Center for Human Rights and Training, and Cultures Without Borders for both the kind invitation and hosting this very important event. Let me also say how, for me personally, for somebody who's been in Jordan now for more than 5 years, to be very happy to be back in beautiful Aqaba. I don't come here often enough, but I look forward to visiting again in the near future. The issue of diplomacy, as our dear colleague highlighted, is indeed about finding a balance, moderation, being able to acknowledge and indeed respect and be able to listen to different opinions, sometimes opinions that are very diverse and which sometimes seem almost impossible to reconcile and find common ground. But indeed that is what the world requires today, now perhaps more than ever before. We see a world increasingly in turmoil, a world in which the space for dialogue seems to be becoming less and less. And so it's incredibly important that all peoples from all countries do find ways of communicating with each other with respect for diversity, whether they are young children growing up in schools or whether indeed they are heads of state and government trying to find solutions to some very, very difficult challenges. I think recently the coronavirus pandemic that emerged in 2019 indeed spotlighted the need for effective leadership in crisis. And since then, the world has witnessed crises of a different nature, and some which further threaten the world's ability to find common solutions to shared problems. And as we continue to search for solutions for emerging challenges, and indeed as governments try to maintain constructive channels for diplomacy, we are reminded that inclusive and diverse leadership does make a difference. Since the start of the pandemic, the relationship between national female leaders and their effectiveness in handling the COVID-19 crisis has received a lot of media attention. One study found that COVID outcomes are systematically better in countries led by women, and that to some extent this may be explained by the proactive and coordinated policy responses adopted by them. Yet, globally, women make up less than 30% of COVID task force members, a number not dissimilar to the one of women in political leadership positions. Only 5 countries in the world have 50% or more women in parliament. At the current rate of progress, gender parity in legislatures will not be reached before 2063. Behind these somewhat discouraging statistics, however, there is ample evidence of the positive effects of women's participation in decision-making positions. Women more often work across party lines to eliminate gender-based violence, to secure more funding for healthcare, education, and socio-economic issues, as well as to support gender-responsive policies across all sectors. Data from 19 member states of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development found that an increase in the share of female legislators by only 1 percentage point can increase the ratio of education expenditures to GDP by 0.03%, while other research shows that a 10 percentage point increase in women's representation in cabinet can increase health expenditures by $208 per capita. Here in the Arab States region, the region over the past 15 years has witnessed the implementation of reforms leading to positive gender-related changes, whether they be on issues of mobility, pay, or indeed marriage. Furthermore, member states in this region have made commitments to enhance women's political participation in the Arab Declaration of the 64th session of the Commission on the Status of Women by adopting a threshold of 30% women in leadership positions in official institutions and in legislative, executive, and judicial bodies at all levels. Yet, in all countries around the world, from the local level to the global level, women's leadership and participation remain restricted. Women are underrepresented as voters. They're also underrepresented in decision-making positions, whether in elected office, the civil service, the private sector, and in academia. This occurs despite their proven abilities as leaders and as agents of change, and their right to participate equally in governance. As we enter the final stretch towards 2030 and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, we look at what works and what needs further attention, while underscoring, as His Excellency the President of the Jordan Senate did, that legislation does go a long way to promote and achieve full and effective participation of women in decision-making at all levels. Gender quotas and temporary special measures are proven to increase women's representation in legislatures and other sectors when they are well designed, adequately